The pilots were already in the cockpits, 200 Israeli fighter jets, engines running, targets locked. And at that exact same moment in Moscow, a decision had already been made. Russia handed Iran the keys, the precise locations of every American warship, every radar, every forward operating base in the region. Not a rumor, not speculation. Confirmed by Washington Post, CBS, NBC, CNN, and RFE/RL simultaneously on March 6th. And here is what makes this brutal. The jets had already launched before anyone in Washington understood what Putin had done. This is the story of the night the Middle East changed forever, and the hidden hand that is now steering both sides of the war. Let's go back to February 28th, 2026. At precisely 01 20 hours local time, Israeli Air Force radar operators executed the largest single-night air campaign in IDF history. 200 combat aircraft, 500 targets, 18 Iranian provinces, simultaneously. This was not a strike. This was surgical demolition of an entire country's military infrastructure in a single night. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir called it, and I want you to hear this exact phrase, significant, decisive, and unprecedented. By day 3, Israel alone had dropped 2,500 munitions. By day 7, combined U.S.-Israeli forces had dropped over 4,000 bombs. The supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, was dead. But here is where this story stops being about jets and bombs and starts being about something far more dangerous. Because while Israel was dismantling Iran from the air, Russia was quietly feeding Tehran a weapon the IAF could not destroy with any bomb. Real-time intelligence, American positions, American ships, American lives. To understand what Russia handed Iran, you first have to understand what Iran was flying blind against. The Israeli Air Force sent 3 aircraft types into Iranian airspace that night. First, the F-35I Adir, Israel's modified stealth variant, equipped with custom electronic warfare suites and a helmet-mounted display system that no other nation's F-35 carries. These flew first. Their job was to kill Iran's radars before the radars could even detect them. Second, the F-15I Ram, Israel's long-range heavy strike platform carrying Black Sparrow air-launched ballistic missiles designed to penetrate hardened underground facilities. Third, the F-16I Sufa, delivering Spice family precision-guided bombs against surface targets at a range exceeding 100 kilometers. But what made this operation fundamentally different from June 2025 was 9 American aircraft that never fired a weapon. 9 U.S. KC-46, Pegasus aerial tankers based in Israel, solved the IAF's chronic refueling problem overnight. Israel's own tanker fleet, 7 aging KC-707s, had constrained every previous long-range operation for a generation. With American tankers, Israeli fighters could sustain round-the-clock operations over targets more than 2,000 kilometers from home bases. The U.S. also contributed B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, B-1B Lancers, flying 30-hour nonstop missions from South Dakota, F-22 Raptors in their first combat deployment on Israeli soil, and 2 complete carrier strike groups. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed the total, over 50,000 U.S. troops and more than 200 American fighter jets. On day 5, an F-35I scored the first air-to-air kill by any F-35 variant in history, shooting down an Iranian Yak-130 fighter jet over Tehran, Israel's first aerial victory since 1985 in a 5th-generation stealth fighter over the Iranian capital. Now, let's talk about what they hit, because the target list is shocking in its scope. Natanz enrichment facility, 3 buildings confirmed destroyed by satellite imagery, centrifuge hall access points collapsed. Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center, struck and damaged. IRGC Imam Ali Missile Base in Khorramabad, bunker buster impacts visible from Planet Labs imagery. Propellant leaking from destroyed launcher storage. 150 ballistic missiles destroyed. 200 air defense systems eliminated. By day 3 alone. IDF Chief of Staff Zamir confirmed 80% of Iran's air defense network had been neutralized by day 7. Iran's air defenses, which had been rebuilt after October 2024, which had included the new Bavar 373 system, which Iran had spent years and billions constructing, achieved an estimated 3 to 7% intercept rate. For every 100 munitions launched at Iran, 93 to 97 hit their targets. That number tells you everything about the state of Iran's military readiness on February 28th. And at sea, U.S. forces destroyed 11 IRGC Navy warships in 48 hours, including the first submarine kill of a surface warship since World War II, when a U.S. submarine sank the Iris Dina frigate with a single Mk-48 torpedo. So if Israel and America dominated so completely, why does Russia's move matter? Because dominance in the air does not protect American soldiers sleeping in forward operating bases in Kuwait. On March 1st, an Iranian drone struck a tactical operations center at Port Shuaiba, Kuwait. No warning, no siren, no counter-drone system on site. 6 U.S. service members killed, all from the 103rd Sustainment Command. 18 more seriously wounded. Then a U.S. Army Central Memo surfaced, stating that Iran had, quote, likely identified and tracked U.S. forces moving off military installations before the strike. Tracked before the strike, in real time. Iran does not possess the satellite constellation required to track mobile U.S. assets across multiple countries simultaneously. Russia does. On March 6th, the Washington Post broke the story, confirmed immediately by CBS, NBC, CNN, and RFE-RL, that Russia has been providing Iran with satellite imagery and real-time location data on American warships, aircraft, radar systems, and communications infrastructure since the moment the war began. One senior U.S. official described it as a, and these words are important, pretty comprehensive effort. Analyst Nicole Grajewski noted that Iranian retaliatory strikes in 2026 appeared more precise than during the June 2025 war, targeting command and control nodes and radar sites in patterns that resemble Russia's air campaign in Ukraine. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed it on NBC without flinching. Military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not a secret. We have cooperated in the past, and this cooperation continues. Then came the Putin-Pezeshkian phone call on March 7th. Putin expressed condolences over Khamenei's death. Pezeshkian commended Russia's solidarity with the Iranian people. The same day the intelligence story broke. The same day Russia confirmed its role as Iran's strategic partner in this war. That is not coincidence. That is a message. Here's what the exchange looks like on a ledger. And this is where the asymmetric calculus becomes brutal. Iran supplied Russia approximately 6,000 Shahed drones and short-range ballistic missiles for the Ukraine war. Russia reciprocated with Su-35 fighter jets and S-400 air defense systems delivered to Iran in September 2025. In January 2025, Putin and Pezeshkian signed a 20-year comprehensive strategic partnership treaty on January 29, 2026. Exactly 30 days before the war began, Iran, China, and Russia signed a trilateral strategic pact. Russia's satellite intelligence costs Moscow nothing operationally. It does not deploy troops. It does not fire missiles. It presses a button, and in return, Brent crude surged 9% to $79.41 on March the 2nd, the first trading day after strikes began. Russia's Urals blend pushed above $70 per barrel, well above Moscow's budgeted $59 break-even for the war in Ukraine. Higher oil prices fund Russia's war in Europe. The Middle East conflict is Moscow's energy subsidy, paid for by American soldiers. A senior Russian source told Reuters directly, the escalation in and around Iran is already diverting attention from the war in Ukraine. That's just a fact. Now let's run the scenario, because this is where it gets immediate. Iran fires indiscriminately. Missiles reach Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Jordan simultaneously. Qatar Energy halts operations at the world's largest LNG export facility. Hormuz traffic effectively stops. City projects Brent between $80 and $90 in the near term. Goldman Sachs estimates it could exceed $100 with an extended Hormuz disruption. Every dollar of that price increase flows directly into Russia's war chest. Meanwhile, Patriot interceptor stockpiles, which Ukraine desperately needs, are being consumed at record rates to defend Gulf allies. U.S. intelligence bandwidth, satellites, signals collection, analyst hours, that was focused on Russian movements in Donbass is now redirected to Tehran, Bandar Abbas, and the Strait of Hormuz. Russia didn't fire a weapon, it fired a proxy. And that proxy is costing America on 3 fronts simultaneously. Here's the response that should concern every strategic analyst watching this. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told CBS 60 Minutes, "We're tracking everything. No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger." 6 American soldiers are in body bags. 18 more are in hospitals. Former Ambassador Richard Kauslerich framed it with surgical precision. If this leads to the deaths of American service people, I think we have a real problem in our relationship with Russia. The problem already exists. The question is whether Washington will name it. But Russia is not the only external power reshaping this conflict's geometry. China's foreign ministry spokesperson called the strikes a grave violation of Iran's sovereignty and stated Beijing firmly opposes and strongly condemns the killing of Khamenei. That is diplomatic language. Here is the operational language. A Chinese surveillance vessel, Dayang Yihao, has been shadowing the USS Abraham Lincoln since the war began. U.S. intelligence suggests China may be preparing financial assistance, spare parts, and missile components for Iran, unconfirmed but under active assessment. The trilateral pact signed January 29th, 30 days before the war, was not theoretical. It was operational architecture. Now overlay this against NATO's response. And the picture becomes massive in its implications. NATO intercepted an Iranian missile heading toward Turkish airspace. The first time in history that NATO forces engaged an Iranian projectile targeting a member state. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stated clearly, there are absolutely no plans for NATO to get dragged into this. But France deployed the Charles de Gaulle carrier from the Baltic to the Mediterranean. The UK sent Typhoons to Qatar. Spain condemned the strikes as unilateral military action. The Western alliance is already fracturing along exactly the fault lines Russia spent a decade engineering. And the Gulf states, the allies whose bases America depends on to project power against Iran, are furious. PBS reported Gulf allies were disappointed. The United States did not notify them before striking. Iran's retaliation rained down on Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Former Saudi intelligence chief, Prince Turki al-Faisal, told CNN, "This is Netanyahu's war. He somehow convinced the president to support his views." The UAE recalled its ambassador to Israel. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky disclosed that Washington asked Kyiv to help defend Gulf states from Shahed drones, the same Iranian drones that Ukraine has been intercepting for 2 years. The proxy war chain has come full circle. Ukraine defending the Gulf from Iranian weapons that Russia also uses against Kyiv. All of it interconnected, all of it deliberate. Here is the asymmetric ledger on this conflict as it stands today. Israel and America destroyed 80% of Iran's air defenses, eliminated its nuclear program access, killed its supreme leader, and sank its navy, all in 7 days. Russia spent $0, 0 aircraft, and 0 soldiers, and in return received higher oil revenues, degraded NATO attention on Ukraine, depleted American interceptor stockpiles, and 6 dead U.S. service members. That is not a bad return on a satellite uplink. The FPRI framed it precisely. Russia providing Iran with targeting intelligence is the mirror image of the United States providing Ukraine with targeting intelligence. Both sides are now running the same proxy architecture simultaneously, and both sides are watching to see who blinks first. The question that nobody in Washington wants to answer publicly is this. If Russian satellite data contributed to the precision of the drone strike that killed 6 Americans in Kuwait, what does that make Russia? A spectator, a partner, or a combatant? Because the answer to that question changes every calculation. The Ukraine negotiations, the NATO posture, the Trump-Putin relationship, all of it. 200 jets took off from Israeli air bases on February 28th and changed the Middle East permanently. But the move that may define this entire conflict was made quietly, in a Moscow command center at a satellite terminal, by a man who never left his chair. Putin handed Iran the keys. The question now is, what door they open next? So here is what I want from you. Washington now knows Russia is feeding Iran American positions. 6 soldiers are dead. The White House is calling it irrelevant. Do you think the Trump administration should treat Russia's intelligence support as an act of war, with consequences for the Ukraine negotiations and the NATO posture? Or is this the new normal? Proxy warfare at the intelligence layer. Too costly to escalate, too dangerous to ignore. Drop your assessment in the comments, because this decision is being made right now in Washington. And the answer will determine whether this war stays regional or becomes something else entirely. If you want to understand how Iran's 3% air defense intercept rate connects to the collapse of the S-300 program and Russia's broken promises, that analysis is coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.